The rain-slick streets of A Coruña gleamed under the sodium lamps like a promise half-kept, and Julia Reyes clutched her leather portfolio so tight her knuckles ached. She hadn't flown across the Atlantic from New York just to choke on her own nerves, but here she was, heels clicking unevenly on the cobblestones leading to the old harbor warehouse that now housed Galician Threads, the boutique fashion house she'd idolized since her Parsons days. "You're overqualified for this," her best friend had warned over FaceTime that morning. But Julia needed Spain's salt air to scrub away the ghosts of her last breakup, the one that left her sketching dresses in the dark instead of sleeping. She pushed through the heavy oak door, the scent of aged wood and fresh espresso hitting her like a wave. The receptionist, a young woman with a pixie cut and a nose ring, glanced up from her screen. "Señorita Reyes? For the design director position." Julia nodded, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "That's me. 5 minutes early." The office was a labyrinth of exposed brick and rolling racks of silk swatches, sketches pinned to every wall like frantic love letters. Julia's heart hammered as she was led to a glass-walled corner suite overlooking the port, where fishing boats bobbed like forgotten thoughts. And then she saw her. Josephine Hale sat behind a reclaimed oak desk, legs crossed in a pencil skirt the color of midnight, her dark hair pulled into a low chignon that screamed effortless power. At 35, she was the kind of beautiful that didn't need apologies: high cheekbones, full lips curved in perpetual assessment, eyes like polished obsidian that could dismantle you with a glance. She built Galician Threads from a dorm room dream into a brand that graced runways from Bilbao to Barcelona, blending Celtic knots with modern minimalism. Julia had devoured her interviews, the way Josephine spoke of fabric like it was poetry, of design as rebellion. "Miss Reyes," Josephine said, her voice a low drawl laced with that faint southern twang. Atlanta roots, Julia recalled from a podcast, rising to extend a hand. Her grip was firm, warm, lingering just a beat too long. "I've been looking forward to this." Julia shook it, her palm tingling as if Josephine's touch had sparked something dormant. "The pleasure's mine, Miss Hale. Your fall collection, it's revolutionary. The way you layered the fisherman's wool with those sheer organza overlays? It's like capturing the fog rolling in off the Atlantic." Josephine leaned back, her gaze sweeping over Julia. Not predatory but thorough, like she was memorizing the curve of Julia's jaw, the way her black turtleneck hugged her frame, the subtle sway of her hips in wide-leg trousers. It wasn't a leer. It was an appraisal, intimate and unyielding, stripping away the armor Julia had built after years of Manhattan's cutthroat scene. Julia felt exposed, her breath catching, words evaporating on her tongue. Who looks at someone like that in an interview? Like they're not just hiring a designer but claiming a secret? "Sit," Josephine said finally, gesturing to the chair opposite, her lips twitching into something almost a smile. "Tell me why a New Yorker with your resume wants to bury herself in rainy Galicia." Julia sank into the seat, crossing her legs to steady herself. "It's not burying. It's roots. My abuela was from here, Vigo." She told stories of the cliffs, the women who wove their lives into the sea. "I want to honor that. And honestly, your vision speaks to me. It's raw, unapologetic. Like it's for women who refuse to fade." Josephine's eyes softened just a flicker, before the mask slipped back. "Unapologetic. I like that." She flipped open Julia's portfolio, pages whispering like confidences. Dresses that evoked Brooklyn stoops in bloom, skirts fierce as subway rushes. This one, the crimson gown with the asymmetrical hem, it's got fire. But does it breathe in the wind? Galicia doesn't coddle. She tests. They talked for an hour, the conversation weaving like thread on a loom. Patterns of shared losses. Josephine's mother gone too soon to cancer, Julia's father lost to the bottle. Dreams stitched from scraps of memory. Josephine's laugh was rare. A husky ripple that made Julia's chest ache with unfamiliar want. By the end, as Josephine closed the portfolio with a decisive snap, Julia was hooked, line and sinker. "You're hired," Josephine said, standing to round the desk. She was close now, close enough for Julia to catch the notes of sandalwood and citrus on her skin. "Start Monday. But one thing, we're a family here. No walls. You in?" Julia rose, her pulse a drumbeat. "All in." That night, in the cramped Airbnb overlooking the Ria de Coruña, Julia couldn't sleep. She paced the creaky floorboards, replaying that look, The way Josephine's eyes had traced her like a blueprint for something forbidden. It wasn't just attraction. It was recognition, two women who'd armored themselves against the world, glimpsing cracks in each other's facades. Julia pulled out her sketchpad, charcoal flying across the page. A woman in emerald silk, arms outstretched to a stormy sea, her face Josephine's fierce yearning. Monday dawned gray and relentless, the kind of rain that seeped into your bones. Galician threads buzzed with quiet energy. Seamstresses humming Galician folk tunes, bolts of linen unrolling like secrets. Julia's desk was a corner by the floor-to-ceiling windows, stacks of mood boards waiting. She dove in, fabric soft under her fingers, ideas blooming like heather on the moors. Josephine appeared mid-morning, two steaming cafés con leche in hand. "Fuel," she said, sliding one over. Their fingers brushed, and Julia swore the room tilted. "Walk with me. I want your eyes on the new atelier." They toured the warehouse expansion, Josephine's heels echoing on concrete, as she gestured to exposed beams, envisioning ateliers where light would dance on needles. Julia offered sketches on the fly, modular stations for collaborative chaos, walls of reclaimed fishing nets as dividers. Josephine nodded, her shoulder brushing Julia's in the narrow space, sending sparks up Julia's arm. "You're a natural," Josephine murmured, pausing by a window where rain lashed the glass. "Like you see the soul of a thing." Julia swallowed, the air thick between them. "Or maybe I just see you." The words hung bold and unbidden. Josephine's breath hitched, her gaze locking on Julia's. Dark pools reflecting the storm outside. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that space, charged with possibility. Then Josephine stepped back, a shadow crossing her face. "Careful, Reyes. Souls are tricky territory." But the pull was there, undeniable, threading through their days like invisible selvage. Lunches stretched into afternoons at harborside cafes, dissecting Milan shows over plates of pulpo alla gallega. Evenings bled into late nights at the office, wine bottles emptying as they pinned patterns, Josephine's hand steadying Julia's on the mannequin, breaths mingling over the curve of a collarbone seam. One Friday, after a brutal deadline crunch, Josephine invited Julia to her finca, an old stone farmhouse on the cliffs near Malpica, 30 minutes west. "To celebrate surviving week one," she said, eyes crinkling. "Bring your sketchbook. No shop talk if we can help it." Julia arrived as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, the house a sentinel against the Atlantic's roar. Inside it was warmth incarnate. Flagstone floors, bookshelves groaning with design tomes and dog-eared poetry. Walt Whitman rubbing spines with Rosalia de Castro. Josephine poured Rioja from a decanter, her hair loose, waves framing her face like a Renaissance muse. They wandered the terrace gardens, wild roses tangling with lavender, the sea a symphony below. "This place saved me," Josephine confessed, leaning on a lichen-crusted wall. "After Atlanta, after coming out the family implosion, I ran here. Thought I'd drown in the rain, but it washed me clean." Julia's throat tightened. "I get it. My ex," she said, "I designed for ghosts, not living women. Left me for a real life in the suburbs." She laughed bitterly. "As if love's not the realest thing." Josephine turned, her hand finding Julia's cheek, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "It is. And sometimes it's the scariest." Their lips met then, soft as sea mist, deepening into something fierce and claiming. Josephine tasted of wine and salt, her arms wrapping Julia close, the world fading to the crash of waves and the thunder of heartbeats. They broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed, Josephine's whisper ragged. "Stay tonight." Julia did, the night unfolding in whispers and touches, gentle explorations under star-pricked skies, bodies aligning like patterns finally matched. No rush, just reverence. Fingers tracing collarbones, lips brushing eyelids, the quiet affirmation of two women finding home in each other. Weeks blurred into a rhythm, workdays laced with stolen glances, weekends escaping to hidden coves where they swam naked in frigid waters, laughing as seals watched from afar. Julia's designs infused Galician threads with urban edge, a line called Exile's Thread, evoking diaspora dreams in wool and lace. Josephine's pride shone in board meetings, her hand squeezing Julia's under the table, a silent vow. But cracks spiderwebbed early. Whispers in the atelier. Josephine's pet project. Emails from New York scouts, dangling bigger offers Julia waved off. And then the shadow, Josephine's ex Elena, a sleek Barcelona publicist with a venomous smile, slithered back into the picture, consulting on the spring launch. Elena was all edges. Platinum bob stilettos that clicked like judgments. She cornered Julia in the break room one afternoon, stirring her espresso with deliberate slowness. "You're the flavor of the month, then?" Josie always did like her strays, until they claw back. Julia stiffened, spoon clattering. "We're not strays. We're building something." Elena's laugh was glass shards. "Building? Darling, she's a hurricane. Swallows women whole, spits out wreckage. I should know, I was the blueprint." That night, Julia confronted Josephine over dinner at a cliffside parador. The sea a black mirror below. Elena's poison. Why keep her around? Josephine's fork paused mid-air, jaw tightening. "Business, Jules. The launch needs her Rolodex. It's not personal. But it feels like it is." Julia's voice cracked. "Like I'm the one chasing shadows now." Josephine reached across the table, but Julia pulled back. "Trust me. It's real. Elena's the past." Yet doubt seeded, sprouting in quiet moments. Josephine's late nights strategizing with Elena. The way her phone buzzed at odd hours, silenced with a guilty flick. Julia buried it in work, sketching feverishly, but the designs turned jagged, hems fraying like nerves. The climax brewed at Fashion Week in Santiago de Compostela. The city's ancient stones thrumming with pilgrims and poseurs. Galician Thread's show was a triumph. Models striding catwalks lined with Celtic crosses. Julia's Exiles thread earning gasps for its blend of fierce nostalgia and forward thrust. Backstage, amid champagne toasts, Josephine pulled Julia into a shadowed alcove, kissing her soundly. "You did this. We're unstoppable." But Elena lurked, her arm looped through an investor's, eyes gleaming. Later, as confetti rained, Julia overheard. Snatches in a V lounge. Josephine's voice low and urgent. "That can't risk it, Elena. The board's conservative. A scandal tanks us. Jules is brilliant, but us? It's a liability." Julia froze, glass slipping from numb fingers, shattering like her illusions. Betrayal bloomed cold and sharp, Elena's earlier words echoing. "Hurricane." She slipped out, hailing a cab through tear-streaked rain, the driver's concerned, "Señorita?" Lost in her sobs. She didn't go back to the finca. Instead, Julia holed up in a Coruña, packing her life into a suitcase while the Atlantic howled solidarity. Days blurred. Sketches shredded, emails unanswered. Josephine's texts piled up. "Where are you? Talk to me. I love you, damn it." Each a knife twist. On the fourth day, as gulls wheeled over the harbor, Josephine appeared at Julia's door. Soaked from the downpour, eyes red-rimmed. "You heard." Julia's voice was steel. "Every word. Liability. That's what I am." Josephine stepped inside, dripping on the rug, hands trembling as she gripped Julia's arms. "It was fear, Jules. The board sniffing around, Elena stirring shit. But I meant what I said, I love you. More than the brand, more than anything." "Then why whisper it to her?" Julia shoved away, chest heaving. "I came here for roots, for us. Not to be your secret stitch." The argument raged, words like thunder. Josephine confessing Elena's manipulations, the blackmail veiled as advice. Photos from their early days, twisted to suggest impropriety. Julia's hurt spilling in torrents. Accusations of cowardice, pleas for truth. They collapsed onto the bed, exhausted, Josephine's head in Julia's lap, tears soaking Julia's jeans. "I can't lose you," Josephine whispered. "Teach me how to be brave." Julia stroked her hair, the storm outside mirroring the one within. Forgiveness wasn't a seam. It was a rebuild, thread by careful thread. In the aftermath, they rebuilt with deliberate care. Like mending an heirloom quilt. Patch by patch, no hiding the scars. Josephine fired Elena that week, a terse email citing irreconcilable visions, followed by a cease and desist that echoed through Barcelona's gossip mills. The board meeting was a battlefield, Josephine in armor of facts and fire, unveiling Julia's designs as the future, her voice steady as she declared, "Galician Threads isn't just fabric, it's the stories we dare to tell. And ours includes love, unapologetic." Julia sat beside her, hand hidden under the table, squeezing through the tension. Whispers rippled, old men in tweed suits exchanging glances, but Josephine's gaze held them unblinking. Any questions? Silence, then nods. Victory tasted like sea salt and relief. Publicly, they played it cool. Josephine the visionary CEO, Julia the rising star designer. Privately, they carved space. A weekend in Finisterre, the end of the world where Romans once thought the earth dropped off. They hiked the cliffs at dawn, backpacks heavy with picnic fixings, the path winding through gorse and granite sentinels. Remember your abuela's stories? Josephine asked, pausing to snap a photo of Julia against the horizon, wind whipping her curls into a halo. Julia grinned, leaning into her. The Selkies? Women who shed skins to walk on land, but always called back to the sea. She traced Josephine's collarbone, exposed by her linen shirt. Like us, half here, half wild. They spread a blanket on the headland, sharing manchego and membrillo, the Atlantic a vast blue hymn. Conversation flowed easy now, vulnerabilities aired like laundry in the breeze. Josephine spoke of Atlanta's suffocating summers, the church picnic where she first kissed a girl behind the azaleas, the fallout that sent her fleeing to Europe. I built walls higher than these cliffs, she admitted, voice thick. You? You're the tide that wears them down. Julia shared her own fractures. The Manhattan grind, lovers who saw her ambition as armor, not invitation. I thought Spain would fix me. But you make me whole. Their kiss was slow, seasoned with fruit and forgiveness, bodies entwining under the relentless sun. No urgency, just presence, the press of thighs, the arch of backs, whispers of stay and always. Afterward they lay tangled, watching clouds scud like thoughts unspoken. Back at the finca, life wove deeper patterns. Julia adopted a stray cat, a tabby with one ear who prowled the gardens like a tiny sentinel. They hosted atelier dinners, paella simmering on an open fire, laughter mingling with fiddle tunes from a local band. Seamstresses shared tales of grandmother's looms, Josephine translating the Galician lilts, her hand warm on Julia's knee under the table. But harmony, Julia learned, was a vigilant garden. Weed it or watch it overrun. The next threat came subtle. A journalist from Vogue España, tipped off by Elena's lingering venom, sniffing for the real story behind the power duo. The article dropped like a stone in still water. Galician threads. Innovation or intrigue? Inside Josephine Hale's closeted empire. Headlines screamed. Sensational slurs masked as questions. Photos of them at the Santiago show, angled to imply scandal. Sales dipped overnight, investors jittered. Josephine paced the office like a caged panther, phone glued to her ear, damage control a full-time war. Julia found her at midnight, slumped over contracts, scotch neat in hand. This is my fault, Josephine muttered, not looking up. Dragging you into my mess. Julia knelt, taking the glass away. Our mess. And we'll face it together. She pulled Josephine to the window, arms around her waist, pointing to the moonlit harbor. See that? Boats don't sink in calm, they endure storms. We're no different. The next morning they countered with truth, a joint interview, no holds barred. Seated side by side in the glass suite, microphones live, Josephine started. Love isn't a footnote, it's the warp and weft. Julia and I? We're the heart of this house. Julia chimed in, voice steady. We've faced betrayals, doubts. But what emerges is stronger. Designs for women who love fiercely, live boldly. The piece ran 2 weeks later. Threads of resilience. How two women rewove their world. Backlash faded to murmurs, allies amplified. Queer influencers in Madrid donning the line. A Bilbao Pride event featuring their runway. Sales rebounded, tripled. Yet the drama lingered in quieter ways, testing their weave. Julia's visa loomed. A ticking clock to renewal paperwork that meant lawyers in limbo. What if they deny it? She fretted one rainy evening, curled on the finca's sofa, Josephine's head in her lap. Then we fight, Josephine said, fingers interlacing. Or I go with you. New York's got rain too, you know. Julia laughed, but the fear gnawed. A echo of past abandonments. It peaked during a trip to Vigo, Julia's ancestral port, where they visited her abuela's old barrio. Narrow streets hummed with fishmongers' calls, laundry flapping like flags of endurance. At the family plot in the cemetery, overgrown with ivy, Julia knelt, tracing the weathered stone. Isabel Reyes, 1925 to 2001. Tejadora de Sueños, weaver of dreams. She'd love you, Julia whispered, tears hot. Strong like the sea, soft like the mist. Josephine knelt beside her, arm around Julia's shoulders. She wove you. That's legacy enough. But on the drive back, radio news crackled. A storm brewing off Cape Finisterre. Category 3, barreling for the coast. Evacuate lowlands, the announcer urged in clipped Galician. They raced to the finca, battening hatches, boarding windows, securing the garden. As night fell, winds howled like banshees, rain lashing in sheets. Power flickered, then died, leaving them by candlelight, the house groaning under assault. Julia's phone buzzed, her sister in New York. Get out. Storms like this took Abuela's roof once. Panic surged, old stories of drownings and disappearances flooding back. Josephine pulled her close on the rug. Blankets piled high. We're safe here. Stone walls, remember. But the thunder cracked like judgment, lightning etching their faces in stark relief. Julia clung, whispering fears. What if we lose everything? The house, the work, us. Josephine's voice cut through fierce. Then we rebuild. Again. Because love isn't the fair weather. It's the anchor in the gale. The storm raged till dawn, peaking in a roar that shook the foundations. When light pierced the clouds, they emerged to chaos. Garden uprooted, roof tiles scattered like confetti. But the house stood defiant. In the wreckage they found grace, neighbors converging with chainsaws and stew pots. A community quilt of aid. Julia sketched amid the debris. A storm-woven collection, fabrics distressed by nature's hand, hems edged in salvaged lace from the garden fence. Josephine's eyes lit as she watched. From ruin to revelation. That's us. Months later at the Madrid Fashion Week Gala, Stormwoven debuted to thunderous applause. Models emerging from fog machines like sirens from the deep, gowns rippling with embedded shells and wind-torn threads. Julia and Josephine walked the finale hand in hand, no hiding the link of their arms, the world watching as they bowed to roars. Backstage, amid floral tributes, Josephine drew Julia aside. Marry me, she said, not a question but a vow, a ring glinting, platinum twisted like fishermen's knots, inset with a single emerald from Galicia's mines. Julia's breath caught, joy sharp as sea glass. Yes. 1,000 times. Their wedding was intimate on those same Finisterre cliffs, waves crashing benediction, a circle of friends in storm-woven best. Vows exchanged in English and Galician, rings slipping on with whispers of forever. No grand drama, just quiet power. Two women scarred and shining, weaving their lives indivisible. Yet life, ever the dramatist, scripted one final act. A year on, as they planned an atelier expansion to New York, bridging oceans, Josephine's doctor called. Early detection, the voice said. But aggressive. We caught it in time. Cancer. The word hung like a frayed thread. Treatments loomed. Chemo in Santiago, radiation that would steal her hair, her energy. Josephine faced it with that same unyielding gaze, but Julia saw the cracks. The nights she woke sweating, the sketches left half-finished. We'll fight, Julia echoed their storm mantra, holding Josephine through infusions, her hand steady on the hospital bedrail. Neighbors brought empanadas, the atelier sent care packages of soft scarves in their own dyes. Josephine's humor held. Bald looks fierce, think warrior queen. But the betrayal this time was fate's, cruel in its indifference. Remission came after 6 months of hell, declared on a crisp autumn day in the oncologist's office. Clear, the word a lifeline. They celebrated quietly, at the finca with Rioja and the tabby curled between them. You were my anchor, Josephine said, head on Julia's shoulder. Julia kissed her temple. And you, my sea. In the end it wasn't triumph or tragedy, but the human in between, the weave of joy and ache, love's quiet rebellion against the unraveling. Galician threads flourished, a beacon for women stitching their truths. And Julia and Josephine? They walked the cliffs hand in hand, designs in their hearts, the Atlantic whispering. Endure, evolve, embrace. Years threaded on, subtle as the shift from wool to linen with seasons. The New York outpost opened with fanfare. A Soho loft blending Galician stone with Brooklyn grit, Julia shuttling between coasts like a modern selkie. Josephine rooted in Spain, overseeing the core, their reunions a ritual of airports and urgent embraces, suitcases spilling sketches and stories. Their first anniversary fell during Bilbao's Pride Month, the city a riot of rainbows against grey spires. They danced in the streets, Josephine's laugh free as confetti, Julia's head on her shoulder to the thump of bass. To more storms, Josephine toasted later, in a caserio overlooking the Nervion, glasses clinking. May we weather them all, Julia replied, her ring catching candlelight. Parenthood crept in unexpected. A surrogate from the atelier, a boy they named Matteo, after Josephine's grandfather, the fisherman who taught her knots. He arrived squalling in a Vigo hospital, tiny fists waving like flags of surrender. Julia held him first, tears blurring his button nose, Josephine beside her, whispering Galician lullabies. Fierce little weaver, Josephine said, tracing his brow. Matteo grew amid the chaos. Toddling through the finca's gardens, ink-stained fingers from Julia's drafting table, Josephine's southern stories of fireflies and magnolias lacing his dreams. Holidays split hemispheres, Thanksgiving turkeys in a Coruña with paella sides, Christmas in New York under twinkling trees, Matteo gaping at the rockets. But drama, that old companion, revisited in guises soft and sharp. At 5, Matteo asked, "Why do people stare at mommy and mommy?" After a playground sidelong glance in Madrid. Julia knelt, heart twisting. "Because they see how lucky you are, two moms who love big." Josephine, ever the shield, added, "And some folks forget their own knots. We don't." The real tempest brewed when Julia's mother, long estranged, surfaced, a letter postmarked Queens, words tentative. "I've been wrong. Can we meet? For Matteo's sake." Julia's abuela had bridged them once, but divorce scars ran deep, her mother's rejection of Julia's queerness a chasm. Josephine found her in the garden, letter crumpled in fist. "Go," she urged, cupping Julia's face. "Not for her, for you." Unfinished threads snag. The reunion was in Central Park. Autumn leaves carpeting paths like fallen intentions. Elena, Julia's mother, waited on a bench, grayer, smaller than memory, hands twisting a scarf Julia recognized. One from their early line. "I was scared," she started, voice quavering, "of losing you to a world I didn't understand." Julia's throat burned. "You pushed first. Said I was choosing that life over family." Tears tracked Elena's cheeks. "I was choosing fear. But seeing your designs in stores, reading about you too. You're weaving what I couldn't." Words tumbled, apologies, anecdotes of Matteo's mischief, Josephine steadying texts buzzing in Julia's pocket. No instant mend but a start. Coffee dates, Elena's tentative visits to Spain, holding Matteo with soft hands. Back home, Julia collapsed into Josephine's arms. It hurt, but it healed something. Josephine kissed her forehead. "That's grace, amor. The kind we design for." As Matteo hit school age, conflict shifted domestic. Julia's wanderlust clashing with Josephine's anchor in Galicia. New York's calling for a collab with Parsons. Julia pitched over breakfast, Matteo munching tostada nearby. Josephine's fork paused. "And us? The finca?" Matteo's roots. The argument simmered days, late nights in separate studios, silences thick as fog. It erupted on a cliff walk, Matteo asleep at home with the sitter, wind whipping words raw. "You're clipping my wings," Julia shouted, arms flailing. "I came for freedom, not fences." Josephine's eyes flashed. "And I built this for stability, for him, for us. After the cancer, the storms, don't you dare call it a cage." They stood inches apart, breaths ragged, the sea indifferent below. Then Julia crumpled, sobs wrenching. "I'm scared. Of drifting apart, of losing you to the miles." Josephine pulled her close, rain mingling with tears. "Then let's weave both. A season in New York, you lead the collab, I consult remote." Matteo splits time, learns both worlds. Compromise bloomed tentative, tested by logistics. Video story times, exhausted reunions at JFK. But it held, strengthening. Matteo trilingual, collecting accents like shells. The pinnacle came at 10, Matteo's school play in a Coruña. A retelling of the Selkie myth, him as the seal child torn between sea and shore. Julia and Josephine in front row, hands clasped, heart swelling as he delivered. "Home isn't one place, it's the love that calls you back." After, in the green room, Matteo hugged them fierce. "Did I do good?" Josephine ruffled his hair. "You wove magic, Mijo." That night under stars pricked like sequins, they made love slow and sure. Bodies familiar as favorite fabrics, reaffirming the bond time couldn't fray. Decades unspooled like bolts of silk. Mateo off to art school in Barcelona, wedding his own love. A quiet chef with a laugh like summer thunder. Grandkids toddled the finca, Julia and Josephine graying gracefully, lines etching stories on their faces. Josephine's cancer shadowed once more, stage 1 at 60, caught in routine scans. Treatment was kinder this time, targeted outpatient, but it stripped illusions of invincibility. Julia sat vigil, sketching beside the 4-drip, designs for a legacy line. Pieces handed down, hems lengthened for new generations. Remission rang bells again, celebrated with a family feast. Paella vast as the table toasts to endurance. To threads unbroken. Mateo raised his glass, his partner nodding beside. In quiet hours Josephine confided fears. What if next time? Julia silenced her with a finger to lips. Then we face it woven together. No loose ends. Their story closed not with fanfare, but humanism's hush. Josephine at 72 slipping away in the finca's big bed. Julia beside her, Mateo's hand in hers, grandkids' drawings pinned to the wall. No agony drawn out, just peace, morphine soft. Josephine's last whisper. My see. Keep weaving. Julia mourned fierce. Cliffs walked alone, sketches half finished. But betrayal's sting had long alchemized to gold. She poured it into the brand, endowing scholarships for queer designers, a foundation named Hail Reyes Threads. At the memorial on those Finisterre cliffs, wind carrying Josephine's ashes to the Atlantic, Julia spoke to the gathered. Friends, family, atelier kin. She taught me love isn't flawless seam. It's the mend that shines brightest. And in that we're all human, gloriously frayed. Mateo hugged her after, voice thick. She'd say keep going, Mom. Julia nodded, ring glinting farewell. I will. For her. For us. And so under endless skies Julia walked on, designs flowing, heart full of salt and stories. A woman who'd loved deeply, lost gracefully, lived woven true.